Morning. Right, we all ready? Brilliant. Okay. You have to pull me up if I do something wrong. Do it not in the right order, as another councillor did it last week. Right, good morning. My name is Simon Carswell. I'm the chair of the subcommittee today. I'm a Somerset councillor for Street. It's a public meeting, and therefore it is being streamed, or not. It's being streamed live and recorded by the council. There's no members of the public or media here today, I think, to welcome, thankfully.
And I think we do have some members of the public and press joining online.
All right, they're very welcome. Okay, brilliant. If you could all refer to page numbers on the agenda, that would help. And now we'll start the meeting as in our schedule. Okay, apologies for absence. There won't be any, I don't think. No. Declarations of interest other than those already declared. Anybody? Councillors?
No, for me.
No, thank you. The agenda item 3 details the procedures to be followed when considering licensing of Hackney carriage, private hire drivers, vehicles, operator related enforcement. If everyone has read the agenda and understood these procedures, we will continue with the main agenda item today. Is everybody happy with that? Everybody read the procedures? Happy?
Yeah.
Great. When do I welcome the, do that now, do I? Can I go around the room and just get everybody to introduce themselves? So I'll start to my left.
Hi there, I'm Marcus Cook. Oh, back is not working.
Wicked and canny.
It's for online. I'm Marcus Gravis, division member for Dunster.
I'm Hugh Davis, I represent Willerton Object, Mr. Guernsey, that area. Thank you.
I'm Gemma King, I'm one of the directors for Fairview Minibuses.
I'm David King, the original owner of Fairview and one of the directors now.
Good morning, I'm Alan Weldon, one of the licensing leads for Somerset Council.
My name's Simon Guest, licensing officer for Somerset Council.
Good morning, my name's Rose Stokes. I'm a clerk in Democratic Services at Somerset Council.
I'm Nigel Osborne and I'm legal advisor to the panel.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, the way we will, what we're doing today is reviewing the licence of Fairview minibuses and taxis following the company being convicted in Bath Magistrates Court for taxi-related offences. So, it says about introducing yourselves next on the schedule. I don't know why I haven't got with that. Okay, super. If you all have your phones on silent, I didn't say that.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. So what we'll do, we'll go in order. We'll have the licensing officer represent their report, and we'll have questions for them. We can all ask questions yourselves. You can then present your case. Again, we'll ask questions as necessary. And then there'll be any further questions. And after that, as long as everybody's had their say and everybody's happy, we will retire to make a decision and hopefully come up with a decision today for you so that you know what's happening. Is that okay? Good. As I said, I'll ask officers to call me up if I do something wrong. Okay, so we'll get straight to it, shall we? If the licensing officer could present their report, please. Simon.
Okay, thank you. The matter before you today is consideration of any action against a private hire operator's licence for Fairview minibuses and taxis following police action and a recent court hearing. In October 2022, we first received contact from Avon and Somerset Police. They'd stopped an unlicensed driver at Bristol Airport in a Fairview vehicle that was licensed by the then Sedgemoor District Council. A couple of days later, I received a call from the unlicensed driver, Helen Goodland, as she wanted to speak to me about the incident. A summary of the conversation can be found in my witness statement, which is page 17 of the report. A copy of the statement Helen made to the police can be found at page 19, so it's a bit obscured there on the report. Although the matter came to light because of an airport stop, subsequent information came out in the conversation and statements that Helen had been conducting school transport runs for several weeks, despite being A, unlicensed, B, not known to the school transport team at Somerset Council, and C, apparently not having completed a full enhanced DBS criminal records check, all of which are serious breaches of public safety. The police decided to undertake criminal proceedings against the operator. This was on the understanding that we referred the operator licence status to a subcommittee to see if they wanted to take any further action on the operator licence. And page 21 of the report gives details from the police regarding the outcome of the court case. The conviction's not been declared to the licensing authority, and page 23 of the subcommittee report shows an extract of the Sedgemoor District Council policy, which we're currently working under, which requires such convictions to be declared. This has not yet formally been received from the operator. The panel need to consider what action to take. If the panel were to decide on a suspension, for example, then for that duration there are potential knock-on effects for other licenses. Private hire vehicles could not be used by the company. This would have significant impact on their school transport contracts and cause local disruption. But this should not be enough to deter members from taking this action if they consider it appropriate. The same would apply if revocation were the decision only on a more permanent basis. In defence of Fairview, I've worked in licensing for 9 years, and in that time I cannot find record of one significant complaint relating to the company or any of their drivers. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Simon. We'll now go to questions of the licensing officer, so I'll go to my fellow members first. Marcus?
Yeah, thank you. Am I right in saying in the policy, should the driver also have mandatory safeguarding training before they were driving? So that should be done.
Yes, all licensed drivers, as part of their licence application, would undertake mandatory safeguarding training before their licence. In this case, the individual in question was never licensed by us, so I'd never even heard the name before the incident came to light.
Can I come back? And on that training, what would that training involve, safeguarding training?
That would involve things such as child exploitation, adult safeguarding as well, children, vulnerable adults, county lines, and there is a small element of prevent training, although we throw that in as an optional extra.
Hugh, do you have any questions?
Through you, Chair. The thing that surprises me is regarding the DBS check. You've done that very promptly, and I can't understand why you didn't do all the rest that you should have done.
Can we leave that for now, because at the moment it's questions for the licensing officer, so we'll come back to that one.
Okay.
I have one question. It's just, have we been into the business to check their procedures and to go through with them what they've been doing?
In terms of this incident, you mean?
Just in general, since we're aware of the incident, have we been to the business at all or made a visit?
No, we haven't been there, and the reason being is we took advice from Avon and Somerset Police at that time, because they were conducting a criminal investigation. If we'd been involved in speaking to the company or the individual driver involved, the advice was that could prejudice their inquiry, so we were specifically asked to take a back seat while this was all going on.
Thank you. Marcus has another question.
Not sure if it's for you or for later, but it's assuming if the if the company is now a limited company because they're directors, is the licence held under the limited company's name, or how does that work? Because I assume that maybe that is evolved into a limited company.
The licence is currently in the name of Fairview Minibuses Limited.
Fairview Minibuses Limited.
Yes, it's in the company's name at the minute, but as per the report in page 23, the declaration of criminal and motoring convictions, it does say for all licence holders, all current and subsequent criminal and motoring convictions should be declared. So even though there's not necessarily a named individual on this licence, it's in the company's name, there should still be a declaration from the company.
Thank you. Any more questions from members or the licensing officer? Hugh?
Yes, through you again, Chair. Have they only got one licence with Sedgemoor, or have they got another one with the Bath area?
They only have one, if we're talking operator licences, Fairview have one. The way it's structured at the minute is that was working predominantly in the old Sedgemoor District Council area before Unitary. At present, we're still working on 4 policies for the district, so we're still running on under the old council boundaries for now. So at present, this licence does not therefore automatically expand to all of Somerset. It's just still within the same Sedgemoor boundary of Somerset until we resolve the situation and get a full county-wide policy.
Does that answer your question, Hugh? Or,
Yes,
yeah? Okay, thank you. Any more questions from members? It doesn't say here, but do you have any questions to the licensing officer before we go on? Use your microphone.
Just so, with regards to DBS check, we did do a DBS check, which I've got a copy here of. The first thing we do, if anyone comes to see us and shows interest working for us, the first thing we do is a DBS check. So there was a full DBS check done, enhanced DBS check done on this person. And with regards to that, it was also forwarded to Somerset County Council School Transport. So I understand Simon from saying there they haven't received anything. I've no idea why, but we do send them all to Somerset County Council.
Okay, thank you. Right, and now move on if everybody's happy. Simon, do you want to say something?
I think just on that subject, when I've put in my statement, the conversation I had with Helen at the time when I spoke to her, I asked, had you undergone a DBS criminal convictions check? She said, yes, they were sorting that, and she said the only documentary evidence I'd given them was my driving licence. Now, I've got no evidence to the contrary, this is what she's telling me. And my understanding that to do a full enhanced DBS, they would have to also submit a passport and some sort of utility bill, bank statement, etc. Helen said, I've only submitted one form of ID to them. At the point when I had that conversation, which was probably 4 to 6 weeks after she'd started work, I said, have you received a DBS result certificate in the post? And she said no at that point. So that, just based on those facts alone, without clarifying that, without Fairview, that implies to me that the DBS application process probably hadn't been finished at that point. And that's obviously I've been given false information.
Thank you. And just to clarify, normally the DBS check would have to be in place prior to commencing employment?
Yes, so that should all have to go through, especially from our point of view, from obtaining the driver's licence. We will certainly not issue any driving taxi licence for Hackney or private hire until we've had sight of that DBS and they've also completed all the other requirements such as medicals, driving tests, etc.
Thank you. Right, we'll now move on to the operator, who is obviously Fairview Taxis, but Gemma and David.
That's right.
Gemma and David. If you can use the microphone, you can both speak. Yeah, okay, over to you.
Okay, if I can start first.
Yeah.
Obviously, none of you know anything about Fairview. If I can just give you a bit of background about Fairview Taxis. We've been operating for 25 years. I started the business up with just my wife, and we built the business up. And Gemma and my son-in-law Marcus recently joined us in the last 3 or 4 years. In that time, we built the business up. And I would say we are a very respected company in Burnham and Highbridge area, well-run company. Currently, there are 3 other taxi companies in Burnham that have been born out of Fairview. Ex-drivers have started up on their own. So hopefully that points that we've been a reasonably run company to other companies to start up from us. Going to the incident in Pro at the time, we're not here to say we didn't do anything wrong. We know we've done something wrong. We were in a situation at the time where we were coming out of COVID. We had 3 companies in Burnham shut down within a very short time last year. We took on a number of their contracts, which was fine, and we took on 2 drivers from the previous companies. Then within a matter of 4 weeks, we had 2 drivers pack up with us and a driver retire, semi-retire, or he was going to fully retire, but we coaxed him into just doing a few days to help us out. He is now permanently retired. Left us very, very short of drivers and contract work that we had agreed to take on already. Helen, this lady come to see us. She was looking for a short-term work, a full-time job that she'd been doing at the moment. She'd taken 3 months off, and we said to her, well, yeah, we might be able to find her some work with regards to school transport work. We'd done the DBS. We then had a period of 3 to 4 weeks where we were just basically snowed under. Helen agreed to help us out on a couple of jobs, which she did. Hands up, yeah, we were wrong to offer the work. We're not, hiding from that, yeah, we done wrong.
Yeah, we know we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, but we have done it.
We did it.
We have now put procedures in place to stop this happening again and for us to get into that situation again. Because last thing we want to do is tie ourselves up like we did before. Hopefully that will give you where we stand.
Can I say something?
What I was going to say is with regards to, obviously, we have had before where Helen is like able to do a school run as long as we have our DBS, which obviously we've done the DBS, and not only that, she was also coming from, her job was from Bridgewater and Taunton College, where she would have had safeguarded training there, obviously because she'll be dealing with, dealing with children and vulnerable adults as well. So we knew she would have had some safeguarding with them as well.
Thank you for that. Do officers have any questions?
Through what I've said so far, I've only got Helen's version of events through a telephone conversation. I don't know if either Gemma or Dave could confirm, is it correct that Helen did do school runs for you for about 4 weeks?
On and off. It wasn't necessarily every day, because there were certain days, again, she'd have to say to us that she would have to go back to Bridgewater Taunton College for meetings and that. So yes, she did, but it wasn't necessarily every day.
Okay, and just taking on from that, just for members' information, as Helen was not licensed by us for any of those journeys, she would not have been insured if she was involved in an accident with the children on board or what have you. So that's the public safety concern we have primarily with this incident.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions? Okay, we'll go. Any other officers have questions? Yeah.
Do you have a copy of the DBS certificate? Can you tell us the date on it?
It's done through, it's done through a company called UCheck, which is all the companies we do all our drivers through. Let's see if we've got a date. Enhanced. The date of issue, which was the one we got from, was the 13th of November 22.
when you go on the U-Check system, they do like a checklist of everything that's gone through. So everything on there that you can keep going online, so you can keep checking. So when we were going online and check, everything was clear. The only thing waiting for was the actual copy of the certificate to come through. So there was a delay on that coming through.
And the reason why we think there was a delay was because Helen, through her company, Bridgewater College, were also doing another DBS on her at the same time. We think there was when we spoke to U-Check, there's a conflict. You've got two DBSs going through to the same person at the same time, which could be something, some sort of fraud going through.
Do you want to come back on that? Okay, I will go to questions. Oh, Simon.
So just for clarification then, I think Helen's indicated she probably did her first job for you about September time, in September, to fit in with the school contracts.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It might have been a bit later,
Yeah.
we're covering that school.
So later September, even second half of September, something like that. This incident happened in October that triggered it at the stop at the Bristol airport, but the DBS wasn't concluded until, as you said there, middle of November. Yeah, so during all of that period, no one would have known what the outcome of the DBS would have been.
Thank you. And just, can I ask Simon a question? So the Kings have stated that the employee would have gone through safeguarding at the college, and they'd also put in for a DBS check. But should the person also have had a license to operate?
Yes, they should have had a licence, because ultimately if they've got no licence, they're not insured. And I said, we wouldn't have been aware of them. They're conducting jobs in vehicles licensed by the then Sedgemoor Council. So licences need to be in place for both vehicle and driver.
Thank you. Marcus?
Yeah, well, just one question first of all. What was the date you actually applied for the DBS? So obviously it was.
It doesn't give us the date here. It would have been the very first time we met Helen, which probably would have been September time. Basically, when we apply for it, it goes on there to say that we got all the information correct, all the information's been read. It then does, it's like a different stage section it goes through. It then clarifies who that person is to make sure that exactly who they are, all the records that we've given, i.e. passport details, national insurance number.
They check it all as well.
They check all that to make sure that's clear. It then goes through the, I think it's is it the child protection
Yeah.
section, which came back clear. It then came back through the police section that was clear. And then the very last section comes through and says the actual certificate to be sent out. And that was the thing we were waiting for. So they're cleared all those sections. So there's no problem there, it's all cleared. It's just the certificate come out.
Yeah, might be a few from here, Chair, for me. So I assume that I've never, had DBS checks done on me, but I've never actually, well, not in recent memory anyway. I assume when you apply for a DBS check that you have to pay for it.
Yes.
So you should have a record of when you paid for it.
We do, yeah.
Yes.
And was that prior to the first job she did?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was definitely prior to the 16th September.
Yeah.
Okay. So assume you're a limited company. You say you've now got procedures in place that stops this from happening again. I mean, what procedures have you got in place that you suddenly got out of drivers? How do you deal with that?
Okay.
Or how will you deal with it?
What we do now, 2 directors, there's 4 directors in the company, 2 directors, every morning we have a get together in the office to go through bookings that have come in the day before, to make sure we can get those covered with the drivers that we've got at the moment. And those jobs are allocated to those drivers at the time. So we will email our drivers and say to them, we've got this job, this job, this job, even if it's a week, 10 days in advance.
Or
So
even a few months in advance if it's depending on sort of the length of job where it is.
So we to make sure we got those jobs covered so we know exactly where we are with those. We also,
A lot of the time if people are ringing up to to book it and we know and they are booking, say, a bit more in advance, or even if it's sooner, which might be a week, if they come through, we will take it down as an inquiry first, just to make sure we can cover it. And then if we can't, then we just have to turn that work down. So we'd like to make sure we know it's, rather than take it and then go, oh no, how are we going to do it? We just look at it and go, right, we take it as an inquiry first, and then that way we call them back. If we can't do it, we just say, look, really sorry, we just can't do it.
The school runs that we've got currently with Somerset County Council, they are allocated to a driver, so we know what times they're going out, what times they're finishing. So again, we know the spaces that we've got there.
Before Marcus, you might have some more questions, Marcus, but can Simon just come in a second?
It's just for a bit of clarification, or more for members' info really, regarding the DBS process. I think Dave's mentioned there he would have applied for the DBS probably middle of September time, or when you first contacted Helen, and you got the result, or in effect, it was finalised come the middle of November, a couple of months' time. Broadly speaking, in terms of the full enhanced DBS that the drivers have to do, they're generally about a month or so between application being submitted and result coming through. We found that the stumbling block has always been the last item on the agenda, which is the police intelligence information that's added there. I believe that's done locally at Bridgewater Police Station. I don't know if there are staffing issues or what the reason is, but lately they have been taking a lot longer to come back. What the reason is, I don't know. That's done by the police. But the first few stages, like the children's adult barred list and things like that, they're done within 24, 40 hours, very quickly on the DBS. The problem has been, historically, the last minimum 6 months or so, the delays have been getting longer and longer with the DBSs all being stuck at that last stage. In some drivers' case, I know they've actually walked into Bridgewater Police Station and say, look, I'm being prevented from earning a living here. I'm waiting for this. This is unacceptable, this delay. And within 3 or 4 days, they've got the certificate in the post. They've gone in and given it a human jolt, and it's worked. But then not everyone does that. But so it is correct what Dave's saying. There is quite a delay between that. We always used to accept it to be about 4 weeks or so, but historically at the moment, they are taking a lot longer.
Thank you for that, Marcus.
And just for clarity, so you can't apply for, the driver couldn't apply for a licence before they have a DBS check. What about the safeguarding training? I presume we can only offer safeguarding training to people who've got licence, is that right?
Someone would make an application to apply through us, and before any licence was issued and ID badge issued, we would need sight of the full enhanced DBS certificate. They would have to provide evidence that they've done the safeguarding. We have an online free course that they can do. That hadn't come through, but all of that is mandatory before we even start to process the licence.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know whether to let Hugh have a go first and I'll come back.
Okay, Hugh.
Go, then I'll come back after.
Thank you, Chair, for that. I know the question I was going to ask is what Marcus has already asked, so nothing to add along.
Thank you. Okay, Marcus, you're going to come back.
Okay, so you've got a driver who's asked for a job. You've got a DBS check that you say you've applied for. So you still sent a driver out without a licence in a vehicle, without insurance, for over a period of 6 weeks. Obviously, I assume during that time you knew that they weren't insured, and if there was an issue, I mean, if for instance, if they had an accident, I don't think we'd be sat here doing a licensing review. You'd be probably waiting for another court hearing. So, I mean, my question, I suppose, is, I know you said, I know you said you were short of drivers, but no insurance, no license, doing school runs. I don't know what age the kids were either. Not that that's relevant, to be fair.
I would dispute the fact saying that the vehicle is not insured. All our vehicles are insured. That will cover for any and every driver. And when this incident occurred, the police officer that spoke to Helen, spoke to me as well, and said that about insurance. He wanted a copy of our insurance, because he was saying there could be a criminal conviction for Helen for not being insured to drive the vehicle. He allowed Helen to drive the vehicle back from where she was stopped. So I'm sure that if she wasn't insured, the police officer would never allowed her to drive that vehicle back. And so we have sent a copy of our insurance to the police officer, and he's come back, no questions with regards to his insurance problem.
So for clarity, you're saying that your insurance policy is valid regardless of whether the driver of that private hire vehicle is got a private hire, who's got a suitable licence from the local authority, and I can see you wanting to come in as well. So
As far as I understand, yes.
Yep, Simon.
I just clarify with the taxi and private hire legislation, in relation to Hackney vehicles, the law says that a Hackney vehicle must be driven at all times by a licensed driver, whether on or off duty. In relation to private hire vehicles, it is slightly different in that a private hire vehicle must be driven by a licensed private hire driver when conducting a booking. However, at any time when the vehicle is being driven and it is not being conducting a booking, so being used for your own personal use at a weekend, anyone can drive it. They don't have to be a driver licensed by a local authority. But ultimately, whether it's Hackney or private hire, if there is a fare on board, the taxi legislation says the journey must be conducted by a licensed driver.
Okay, Marcus. I'm just going to ask a few questions.
yeah,
first.
you go.
Just as regard to the insurance, are we saying that the insurance company, a bit like when I had a lodger and I didn't tell my insurance contents, buildings and contents, my insurance wasn't valid when I made a claim because I had a lodger I hadn't declared, would the insurance, do you feel, be invalidated because there was a driver who was unlicensed?
That's down to the insurance company. I think probably asking the wrong person. However, I think you'll find if there was a situation where an unlicensed driver were involved in a road crash, for example, and all the police investigation and insurance people would get together and sort out who's liable for what, insurance companies may be inclined not to pay out if they found a fault there to say that the driver is not licensed, and therefore they would say insurance is not validated. That's just my personal opinion. But an insurance company would have to make the final call on that.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Just regards to insurance, luckily, touch wood, we have very few accidents, but accidents that we have had, not once have any insurance company ever asked me for the driver's private hire badge, their Hackney badge, or even their PSV licence. We've given all the details, the driver's dates of birth. They ask any criminal convictions with regards to speeding fines or like that. Not once have they ever asked, or we've ever offered to give them the details of their licences. Never ever been asked that before.
Okay, thank you. Just for a bit of background, how many cars and employees do you have in place? Assuming they've all got DBS and licences, but how many do you have?
Is that all including the minibus drivers as well?
Yeah, just get a gauge of how big the firm is.
So minibus drivers, we have, there's me, Mark, you, Sean and Dermot, so you've got 5 minibus drivers.
Jackie, 6.
Jackie, 6, and then you have Wayne. Dave Barber's retired.
Roughly, we're talking
Probably.
15
Okay,
without going through.
okay, thank you.
Because we do also employ some
That includes like passenger
assistants as well.
as well.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple more questions. Why do you feel, or why didn't you declare the offence once you've been convicted to the licensing authority?
because I'd spoken to the PC involved, basically he said he will be keeping, he mentioned Simon's name, informed on what was going to be happening, and then the outcome. So we presume that the council had already known. So hands up, perhaps I should have contacted Simon, but presumed that he'd known anyway.
Thank you. And there was one other question. I remember when I read the papers, I might be wrong, there wasn't the correct signage on the vehicle. Was that correct?
I need to go back and just check what the statements were, but I think at the time there was no roof sign on the vehicle. It was displaying plates, I believe. Can I just have a read through?
Yeah.
Can I just? It's a small minibus, and basically its point is having a roof sign on it. We take them for council inspections, and we've never had a vehicle fail a council inspection, and we've never put a roof sign on it purely because it's just too high. No one can see it. It's a pointless exercise putting it on there. The rear plate we just had the vehicle back from bodywork repair, and that we hadn't put them back on since that came back. But there was a sign in the front window still on there to say it was a private hire vehicle.
Thank you. Marcus, you want another question?
Yeah, well, just out of curiosity, what was the bodywork repair?
One of our drivers got too close to a wall and scraped the side of the minibus.
After just having my first reversing camera, I think they should be compulsory in taxis for that. I mean, on a serious note, we're here, take the insurance aside, which we focus on quite a bit here. The main issue is the safety of the public and the safety of those people in your cars, whether they be whoever they are. And I suppose the question I've got is, was there, being bearing in mind, I don't know what interview process you had with Helen, and it'd be nice if you could, tell me, what that was and what background you did on her. But was there any point that you were worried about the safety of the public in one of your cars when Helen was driving it?
Never had any problem with Helen at all, no. She was known to one of our other drivers that had been working for us for some time, but not once did we have any problem. She'd been working, say, for Bridgewater College for
quite a while. She drove their vehicles as well, so she would drive their minibuses, transporting the students.
So we had no issues at all.
And what was, when you take on a driver, what do you check? Apart from the obvious driving licence, obviously you did a bit of background, but how well did you feel you knew her?
Well, again, it was more one of the other drivers said about her, and she knew her quite well. So she was nice. Obviously, we did the DBS. Obviously, we had a copy of her driving licence as well.
We didn't do ask for a reference because she was still working for Bridgewater College, and she was only taking a 3-month period away there. She wanted a break from the job that she was doing, and they granted her 3 months off while she was deciding whether she wanted to carry on doing the job that she was doing. She'd been doing it for a large number of years, so we didn't do a reference back to her previous employer, because they were still her employer at the time.
Okay, Marcus, any more questions? You? I've got one more, so I'll just ask that then while they're thinking. You might have covered this already, but what changes in procedures and what actions have you taken following this event?
Well, as I said, leading up to this event, we were literally just snowed under. We'd taken contracts on from other companies that packed up, and we're just overrun. We now allocate the jobs well in advance, so we know they are covered, and also myself, Gemma and Mark, one of the other directors, we've got licences for PSV and private hire licences. We keep one of ourselves free and one of our drivers free at any time. So should we have a problem with a breakdown or a driver ring up, if we had, like we did last week, one of us can cover without impacting on what we do. We can't have a spare driver that we employ, because obviously then they're going to be sitting around not earning us anything or doing any work, just on the off chance. So it's one of us that actually run the company. At the moment, today, Mark is out there as our spare driver. Charmaine, my wife, who's the other director, is manning the phones and giving the jobs out. So we know that Mark is spare at any one time. And then that works the same for being Gemma. It's not Mark all the time. We vary it and we make sure we got the days covered.
So that at some point, there's always, like I said, there's always something spare. So if someone was to phone in sick or something was to happen, we know that we are able to cover it ourselves.
And we also get where we are in a situation where at the moment there's so much traffic works going on around. If a driver was held up, we are in a situation so we can shoot out and cover a job to get them back on track, because obviously it's all time related, people catching trains, etc. It's all time related, so we do say, right, okay, we've got that person on call, off you go, cover that job, just to catch us up.
And obviously I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you just confirm that all drivers you now have working for you and all employees have a DBS in place and a licence is held?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Good. Marcus?
Sorry to come back again, but obviously this is quite a serious breach of the policy, a very serious breach of the policy, and I'd rather spend a bit longer time asking you a couple more questions if need be. And I think you touched on why you didn't tell the licensing officer or tell anyone in licensing about the offence and about the conviction. And I think did you say you were relying on the police to do that for you? I mean, I assume that I think we should also treat our licensing officers there to protect the licensee as well as the customer. Have you, two questions, obviously you were snowed under, appreciate the pressures on all people at this time, but have you, two questions. One, how many, are your drivers employees or are they self-employed? And the other one is, obviously bearing in mind how snowed under you were, have you given up any contracts?
We have sort of one that recently retired. We had two self-employed drivers. We've got one now. The rest are employed by us directly. Yes, we've had to give up contract work because we just can't do it. And we've given notice to Somerset County Council. I think we had one that we were doing up until the last half term, which we haven't carried on for this half term because we just had a driver retire, so we've had to give that up. So yeah, it has impacted on our business definitely.
And equally, anytime county, again, because we do health contracts as well, county come on and say, can you cover this? We just have to say, no, sorry, we can't do it. It's that simple.
I appreciate you're from different areas. I don't know what it's like in your areas with regards to taxis. Burnham and Highbridge, there is an extreme lack of taxi companies. We turn in way as much work as we are taking because there is no taxi companies, very few taxi companies in Burnham. And there's rumours true, I'm here at the moment, there's another one may well be closing in the near future.
Probably by end of July, possibly.
So it's so difficult at the moment to get people to work for you. When we get someone come along, we go through the procedures and tell them how much what's involved in it. They're just not interested. We had one month ago. That comes to see us. Just to, can I bore you for a minute?
You can know. I'm
okay.
You're not boring me by any stretch.
He wanted to basically his mortgage had gone up by about £120 a month. He wanted to work a couple of weekends to help out, so get some money coming in. We went through the procedures that he had to do, and he went, right, I told him how much it was going to cost him, and he went away and then came back, phoned me up, good enough, phoned me up 2 days later and said, thanks for seeing me. He said, would have been interested. He said, I've gone to Domino's Pizzas. I can deliver for them over the weekends. I don't need a DBS check, even though he's going around people's houses. He doesn't do any safeguarding training, even though he's delivering pizzas, and that could be houses where there's multiple occupation in there. There could be, children at risk in those houses. And doesn't even have to worry about his insurance. Just go around, deliver pizzas, he can go in and get a job like that straight away. We've also got, we have PSV drivers, and to get a PSV licence, you have to do a multi-choice questions, hazard perception questions, and a case study. That's all done through the government in Taunton, as if you're basically just coming up to start driving. They then have to go on 3-day training before they take a driving test. The driving test. After that, they have to do another module, which basically is walking around, make sure check your vehicle before you go off and drive it. They have to have a DBS check. They have to have a full medical before they're even allowed in a PSV, and that medical has to be renewed every 5 years. And then once that's 65, you have to have a medical every year. Now that is far and above what is needed for a private hire licence. But that, if you want to get that person on a private hire licence, they've got to go to they've got to do another medical, another driving test, another DBS check, and safeguard training. And they've already done it. And also, PSV driver has to have 35 hours of training every 5 years. So we've got drivers that want to be private. We've got one that wants to be a private hire driver, but he's saying, hang on, you're asking me to take another driving test. Why? I've done 3 days driving with a driving test, and he's a professional driver. The procedures at the moment, I don't know if it will change, but are just long-winded to get drivers, and we just can't get them.
You just can't, yeah. The minute you go for what you have to do, they're just like, they don't want to do it.
Okay, thank you. I think we've digressed a bit there. Good to know.
Well, sorry, I just think it's handy, especially while you've got council, just so that if you're looking at it down the line and you want to get more drivers to come on board, I think maybe you just need to look at the process a little bit so that you can get people to come in and do it.
Okay, Marcus.
Yeah, I'm not about officers. Yeah, I'm not going to. That's a subject for another meeting. I mean, the issue I think is the fact that we've still fundamentally got an unlicensed driver in an unlicensed vehicle. And am I right in saying that there were school runs involved as well? So she was driving a minibus. Whether was she driving a car?
Just a car.
Just a car. So it wasn't, although it was school runs, it wasn't a car. But what you're saying is that this driver actually had driven minibuses in a previous job.
For Bridgewater College, yeah.
And was still able to if she was still there?
That's
I believe she's obviously back working there.
Yeah.
But obviously whether she's driving the minibuses, we don't know.
There's a very grey area with regards to minibus driving. If we have a driver that wants to drive a 16-seater minibus, and take children to school, he has to have a PSV licence. If they work for Bridgewater College, they can drive a 16-seater minibus and take children to school. They can take them to Heathrow. They can take them wherever they like. Do not need a PSV licence.
Go to Hugh.
Thank you, Chair. I just can't get over with your experience of 25 years that you've allowed this to happen when children's are at danger. Because we read it in the papers all the time where there's problems with dodgy drivers, etc. It doesn't matter what sex you are, you still got a problem. And you as a father, I just really can't get it around my head. And I'm concerned with your answers about the insurance that you said the insurance would pay. That's come from you. We haven't had that officially, have we? That that's the thing, you know, you're speaking for yourself, but it's a pity we couldn't get it direct from the insurance companies, but they would have paid if there'd been an accident. That's what worries me, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Marcus, you got another one?
Well, if I can, and I appreciate we are, but I'd rather take the time and get it right. I think Hugh said there, 21 years, 25 years, was it? How have you got, I mean, yeah, you've built a business, yeah, from all accounts, you're well respected, you got a good clientele. At what point did you think this was wrong and this was going to go wrong? And yeah, my concern, I suppose, has happened is, yeah, what would have happened if they just hadn't been a policeman at Bristol Airport? I suppose that's my concern going forward, and that's what, as a committee sat here, we need to think about.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. It was just purely a short time span that we were struggling for. It's not as if we were saying it's going to go on, you know, we're just taking drivers on here, there and everywhere just to go off and do jobs. It wasn't like that at all. We had a short span where the schools had come back in September and we were basically just snowed under, and it's not, you can't just ring up Somerset County Council and say, we just can't do that school run. They expect you've got a contract there, you've got to cover it. And hands up, we got it wrong.
Do any officers have anything to ask? Simon?
I think we know what you're probably going to say here, but you confirmed that this was really a needs-must situation that came about at that time. I don't think anyone's asked it, but I will ask it. I assume there are, at no point have there ever been any other unlicensed drivers doing the same for Fairview?
No.
Okay. And I think obviously taking a bit of a battering today, Fairview. I think, and like I put at the start, I think it is fair to say I've been here 9 years and we've never had an issue with them at all. So I think it's important to bring that back in. And when I very first started here, at that time, I know some of my predecessors, they said, talk about Fairview, that they're one of the better ones. So I think it's important to put that in there as well, just for a bit of perspective.
Thank you, Simon.
Just one question, that's, were you and your fellow directors driving during the time that Helen was employed?
Yeah. We were doing, that's another thing we've cut out. We were doing 18-hour days, some of us. Since we've had to cut our working time and we've had to cut our hours back because you just cannot do it all. You know, you cannot work picking people up in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and still be working at midnight. So we have had to cut back on what we do, A, to give ourselves a rest, and the drivers that we've got as well, time off, because you've got to look at their well-being as well. And we're giving them time off. So where before we were working Sundays, and we've said we just cannot work Sundays anymore. We've got to have a break off. It's not just driving break, but it's answering the phone as well. The phone is going constantly all the time. So we literally said that, just do not work Sundays.
Thank you. Simon, you want to comment?
Just one more point, really, just for members' information. I think Dave mentioned there about the lack of taxis in sort of the Burnham and Highbridge area. It is fair to say that, well, since COVID, I'm aware of a couple of companies that stopped. A handful of self-employed one-man van drivers stopped as well. It has not recovered. So yes, that is correct. There is a shortage in the Burnham-on-Sea area. And I'm sure Dave would probably agree with me, some of the other drivers at the older end of the age scale who are not interested in picking up at 1, 2 in the morning, having that type of person drunk in their taxi. They just primarily want to do daytime work. There's a lot of that as well. And it is a common sort of complaint as such that we get, which we can't really help with, saying, I can never seem to get a taxi in Burnham after tea time. Well, thanks. So yes, it is an issue in Burnham, the lack of taxis. And as I said, if they're having to, with the lack of taxis, they're having to do 17, 18-hour days, etc., is not fair on them as well.
Thank you, Simon. I mean, I'm aware from previous history of my employment that margins in the taxi industry are extremely tight. But also, as an operator with a license for another activity, it is sometimes difficult to say no to somebody because they're not the right age or challenge them. But at the end of the day, it's the safety of the public that's most important. And it's not easy to turn away business. I can understand that. But if the case is that you've got to employ somebody and all the procedures aren't in place, then you've just got to turn away business. And it's not an easy thing to do, I understand that. Right, any more questions from officers or members?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Hugh?
No, thank you.
No? No? Great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll just do a quick summing up if anybody wants to, and then we will retire. So first I come to Gemma and David. Is there anything you wish to say in summing up?
No, I think we've covered everything. We've put our case forward, and just hope that you will see it from our side, and we will learn from the error that we made.
Thank you very much. Officers? No? Thank you very much. Okay, so now we will retire to make our decision in private with the legal officer and the clerk. You're quite welcome to wait. Is that the normal thing here? Yeah, you're quite welcome to wait. And then once we've come to a decision, we'll all reconvene and we'll announce our decision. Unless we can't make a decision today, in which case we'll let you know within 5 working days. But hopefully we can come to some sort of decision today. Okay, thank you very much. We all ready? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for waiting, because it's been a bit of a wait. Lunch isn't quick. No, chicken, it's not. Okay, we had a thorough discussion over this, and I'll read out our decision. Okay, it has been resolved by the panel. The panel has considered the evidence against Fairview Minibuses Limited, in brackets Fairview, following their conviction on the 24th of April 2023 for 3 offences in relation to their private hire operator's licence. The DFT statutory tax and private hire standards states, although private hire vehicle operators may not have direct contact with passengers, they are still entrusted to ensure that the vehicles and drivers used to carry passengers are appropriately licensed, and so maintain the safety benefits of the driver licensing regime. The offences of which Fairview were convicted are serious. Failing to ensure that their driver was properly licensed and driving before their DBS certificate was complete presents a significant risk to the public and risks the confidence and integrity of the licensing system. There can be no excuse for such lapses by a well-established and reputable operator. In mitigation, the company has stressed that this was an isolated incident arising out of a shortage of drivers and the ability of the company to fulfil their contracts. Notwithstanding the remorse and mitigation put forward by Fairview, the subcommittee cannot ignore the risks that the company were running by their actions. It is accepted that no issues or complaints were received over the conduct of the unlicensed driver. However, it has to be accepted that she drove unlicensed on numerous occasions, including school transport, hospital and airport runs, many of which involved vulnerable passengers. It is to her credit that as soon as she was made aware of her part in driving an unlicensed vehicle, she ceased driving for them. Fortunately, whilst the actions of Fairview did not have any significant consequences, it could have been so much different. In addition, it is concerning that contrary to the council's policy, Fairview have failed to formally declare their conviction to the council, instead relying upon the police to make the disclosure. The subcommittee accepts and acknowledges that Fairview have already been punished for these offences in the criminal court, and they have had an unblemished record for a significant number of years. The government guidance makes clear that public safety is the paramount consideration in licensing the taxi regime. The subcommittee accepts the company's remorse and that they have amended their policies and procedures and have learned from their mistake that public safety is and remains at the forefront of their business. It is the decision of the subcommittee that Fairview Minibuses Limited are and remain a fit and proper person to hold an operator's licence. However, the subcommittee will issue a formal warning as to the company's future conduct, which will include an inspection of the company's records and procedures, and that any future breach of the council's policy will result in a further appearance before the subcommittee with their licence at risk. And that's the decision. Did you understand what I've just said? Are you happy with that?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all very much for your time, officers, fellow councillors and yourselves. Safe journey home. We've got a taxi available. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.